Going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Pesticides Session. And our first presenter up is Larry Scraper with Cherokee Nation. Larry, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Good morning. My name is Larry Scraper. I represent the Cherokee Nation and the Intertribal Environmental Council as the Pesticide Management Program Coordinator. And I'm also the EPA Region 6 Tribal Pesticide Program Council representative, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today, is the TPPC, or the Tribal Pesticide Program Council. So let's get started here. What is the Tribal Pesticide Program Council, or the TPPC? It's a tribal partnership group supported by the EPA's Office of Pesticide Programs. We have 62 members of 54 tribes and tribal organizations as of March 2021. We have members from across the country, from Maine to California to everywhere in between. I think every EPA region except one is represented in the council. What's the purpose of the Tribal Pesticide Council? The Tribal Pesticide Council is a tribal technical resource and program policy development dialogue group, that's a mouthful, focused on pesticide issues and concerns. We assist tribes in building tribal pesticide programs by providing pesticide education and training, and researching, developing, and presenting a broad range of tribal pesticide-related issues and concerns. It's the intent of the TPPC to focus on pesticides to be as inclusive as possible for all tribes and tribal organizations that have pesticide issues and concerns. And we try to keep a presence with other pesticide partner groups, the state groups and EPA groups. We have seats on state groups like SAFIREG and APCO, and the steering committees for the training groups. And we collaborate with other tribal partnership groups like a Tribal Toxics Committee and the Tribal Science Committee and others. So we try to keep a presence in the issues in Indian country before all the pesticide groups and everything. So we've been around for a while. So what have we accomplished? Well, our latest accomplishment is the Status of Pesticides in Indian Country report. It was published last October. We worked on it for several years and finally got it finished, and we're reworking it now. It's kind of a living document that we're going to keep updating as we go along with different priorities and different concerns. And we also just started a quarterly newsletter this last February. The first issue has a short one-page summary of the Status of Pesticides in Indian Country report. And we usually, from here, the quarterly newspaper will highlight different tribes and their efforts, or if they have issues on pesticide matters. And we've written issue papers on certain subjects, like several years ago, persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, was in the news, and we wrote an issue paper on that. And we've written issue papers on different training needs in Indian country and pesticide programs. And a few years ago, bed bugs were a pretty popular topic, and we wrote an issue paper on bed bugs in Indian country and some other things. We've written comment letters up to the National Program Manager Guidance, on OECA's Cooperative Agreement Guidance, and EPA Strategic Plan, which they renew every 4 years. So we write comment letters on what we agree or disagree with in those things. And we also have a bed bug educational package. As I said, bed bugs was a big topic a few years ago, and we had a group that put together some bed bug educational resources, and that package is available on our website, which I'll show you a little bit later. Pollinator protection was a big issue a few years ago, and it's still a big issue, really. And so we have a TPPC pollinator work group that meets. Well, we did meet monthly for a while, and then things kind of dropped off. But we created a pretty good online library of pollinator resources on our website. You can find that there. And pollinator protection is one of our priorities for this year. We met in March and set our priorities, which pollinator protection was one of those that we selected as one of our priorities. And so the work group is starting back up, and we invite anybody that's interested in pollinator work to join that work group. I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. Other current priorities is risk assessment. We're looking at unique tribal lifeways that may increase pesticide exposures potential in tribal lands and things, and we're seeking to work with EPA's risk assessment group to institutionalize a systematic approach to screening pesticides that may disproportionately affect tribal populations. And we have a work group that's starting on that also. And direct implementation, which was something that came up in the last strategic plan. But from the beginning, TPPC has worked with EPA to strengthen tribal pesticide program capacity across the nation. Currently, there's 24 tribes that are served by pesticide cooperative agreements with EPA. And the remaining 550 tribes are served by EPA through direct implementation. And we'll work with that to see what that entails and what needs to be done there. And we've got a work group that's developed, and they're developing a strategy to increase the pesticide program coverage in Indian country. And that's our priorities for this year. When does the TPPC meet? We meet twice a year in person. We usually meet in the spring around March, and that meeting is usually held in the DC area around the EPA pesticide offices there, so we can have some headquarter people come and visit and talk about policy. And then we have a fall meeting, which is usually held out in Indian country. It's typically hosted by a tribe, and we usually have that in October. But due to the pandemic and change of administrators in 2020, fall of 2020, the meeting was canceled then, and the spring meeting this year was a virtual meeting, which happened in March, over a week there. And that's where I said we set our priorities and got some different things going. Lots of different subjects up. Working on the budget. One of our members is a NTC chairman, and we're trying to help him get some insight on the budget. And then we have a monthly call. The executive committee has a monthly conference call. They're typically on the third Wednesday of each month, unless we change that to something else if something comes up. The executive committee is made up of representatives from each EPA region and 4 at-large members. As I said, I'm the Region 6 representative, and James Williams with Muskogee Creek Nation is an at-large member. But, however, these calls are not just executive committee. All members are invited to join these monthly calls, and anyone else that would like to join them and to see what's going on. And but we encourage everyone to call in and join those calls. And then we have our work groups. As I said, we're working on them and trying to set up we're just getting back into the swing of these, and from last year. And last year was a hard year for everybody probably. But these work groups will probably meet monthly or bi-monthly. We'll set up calls other than the monthly call, or the executive committee call. Some of them will be before the call, and some of them will be on days where everyone's free to call in. A TPPC administrator for 20 to 2025 grant period is the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, which everyone knows is ITEP. They're housed out of Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. Our former administrator was University of California, Davis. And as I said, we missed last year because we changed administrators. We missed the fall meeting and trying to get things set up with them and back up to speed after being out of the office and everything. So that's, and as I said, we have a website. It's tppcwebsite.org. It's up and running, but we're working on it. We also have a work group that's working on it to make it more dynamic, to make it even more user-friendly and add more resource links to that and easier to read. And as I said, the executive committee call is scheduled for the third Wednesday of each month. And I got down here the sign up for the listserv, which is open to anyone interested. You need to contact Mark Daniels. He is the coordinator with the ITEP for the TPPC, and just get with him and to subscribe to that listserv, and you'll get the monthly invite for the Zoom link, with the Zoom link and the call-in number in that invite. So I'm going to end this slideshow and try to pull up our website to show you what's there. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is our website now. We are working on it to make it more dynamic, I guess you'd say. But this part here says membership. This gives you information of how to become a member of the TPC Council. It gives you all the instructions there. And as I said, we have representatives from every region and Alaska, which I think we are vacant at that spot right now. And there's other things here. It tells us about the TPPC, which I read a short insert about that earlier. And resources. We have, as I said, we have a bed bug educational package on in the urban housing, pollinators work that we've done, news about certification training, then that newsletter that I said we just started. And you can go back and see upcoming meetings that are coming, and past meetings, some minutes from those. And that's basically it. But the one thing here is, if you would like to become a member of TPPC, this membership page tells you about the requirements to become that. You have to have a formal letter from the tribe or the tribal chairman or whatever governing group that you need to from your tribe. And then it has a list of the members, where they're from, what tribe they're from, what state, what reservation, and things. And our policy and procedures is also on there. As I said, we have a welcome page. And we're, like I said, we're working on that to make it more user-friendly. We'll be easy to find the events that are coming up there, and that's our status of pesticide any country there. That's up, and you can click here and get a copy of that if you would like to, and just go to our website there, which is tppc.org, website.org. And that's about it. That is a picture of our chairman, who is Fred Corey, but he is on sick leave right now. So Jasmine Corville Brown is our acting chairman. She's with the Salish Kootenai tribe of Montana. And we have several that are acting as co-chair, trying to fill this spot. Fred's a pretty hard guy to replace. He takes about 5 people to replace him. So, but anyway, that's our website. that's about TPPC. I hope you know more about what we do now, and we invite you to join and join in our calls and see what's on the horizon with the pesticides in Indian country. And that's all I've got for right now. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Larry. If anybody has any questions for Larry, you can use the chat box, or if you're calling in, you can email me and I will forward that question on to Larry. Larry, if you want to stop sharing your screen, it will allow you to see your chat box to make sure you don't have any questions or comments in your chat box.
Okay. Let me see.
Larry's email address or the link to his website, you can just get in touch with me and I'll be glad to share that.
Okay, I don't see where I can.
If you hover at the top of your screen, there should be something that pops up, something says something like stop sharing screen or stop sharing.
Okay, there it is. I get it.
Yep.
There we go.
So do you see anything in your chat box that was posted to you privately?
No, I don't see anything.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Moving on, our next presenter is Kristen Dunbar with EPA Region 6. Kristen, let me give you presenter privileges and then share your screen.
Okie doke.
Okay, we see you're starting to share. I see your PowerPoint. Yep, looks good. Okay, Kristen.
Ready to rock and roll? Okay, thank you, Karen. Good morning. My name is Kristen Dunbar with EPA Region 6 in the Pesticides Section. And today I was asked to talk to you about pesticides and e-commerce. So more specifically, what I'm going to be focusing on today is what you should be looking for when purchasing pesticide products through an e-commerce platform, ensuring that the pesticides purchased are compliant with the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, or FIFRA. And so 3 things I'm going to focus on to kind of help better serve you with that is to talk about FIFRA 101, do a few e-commerce site searches, and then discuss how to do EPA label reference checks. And just a disclosure, EPA does not endorse any of the products discussed in this presentation. All right, so first up, what is a pest? So a pest is any of the following: an insect, a rodent, nematode, fungus, a weed, and it can also be a virus or a bacteria or other microorganism living on a hard surface. And FIFRA Section 2T discusses that. What is a pesticide? So FIFRA is a statute that governs the registration, distribution, sale, and use of pesticides in the United States. So a pesticide can be anything intended for preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pest. So that can be your ant killers, bedbug killers, mosquito repellents. And so pesticides in general, you can think of it as an umbrella. And these all certain different types of pesticides listed below are insecticides. So those are going to target insects. Herbicides are going to target any sort of undesirable plants or weeds. Rodenticides, fungicides. And one thing really popular right now is antimicrobials due to COVID. So those are your mold, algae, bacteria, and viruses. And again, those are bacteria and viruses that live on hard surfaces. If we're talking about hand sanitizers that claim to kill bacteria and viruses on your hands, those are FDA regulated. So examples of pesticides: disinfectants and sanitizers like the Clorox wipes that are so very popular right now. They make claims to kill 99.9% of viruses and bacteria on surfaces. So those are pesticides. Those must be registered with the EPA. They're regulated by EPA. Other examples are weed killer, insect sprays, repellents, and baits. and rodent poisons. And again, that's just to name a few. And so there are three criteria that we kind of use to determine whether or not a product is a pesticide and FIFRA regulated. And those three things are claims, composition, and knowledge. So first up, claims. When the person who distributes or offers for sale the substance states, claims, or implies that the substance can be used as a pesticide. And again, here's a Lysol spray. It makes claims to kill viruses and bacteria on hard surfaces. Again, hand sanitizers are regulated by FDA. So on that label, there is a pesticide claim. Therefore, it is a pesticide. And it only has to meet one of those three criteria to be considered a pesticide. Composition, the substance consists of one or more active ingredients that has no other purpose but to be a pesticide. Its sole purpose is to kill, repel a pest. Therefore, it's a pesticide. Third thing is it might not make any claims, but the person who's distributing or selling the substance has knowledge that they intend to use the product as a pesticide. So again, there might not be any claims on the label, but their intent is to use it as a pesticide. So therefore, it's a pesticide and would be regulated under FIFRA. So those are your three things. So we discussed what is a pest, what is a pesticide, and criteria used to make that determination. So what are the requirements for pesticides? So three things. It must be registered with the EPA. Where it's produced, it must be produced in a registered establishment, and it must be labeled according to the EPA accepted label. Registrations are handled by EPA headquarters. Establishment registrations are in the U.S. are handled by our regions. And then any foreign establishments, because we do get imports of pesticides, those foreign establishments are handled by EPA headquarters. And when the company is registering the product, the headquarters product manager is also reviewing a label and accepting a label of what should be on the containers. And so registration numbers, it consists of two sets of numbers with a dash in between. So an example here is Roundup Aquamaster herbicide. The EPA registration number for that product is 524-343. So that 524, first set of numbers right there, is unique to the company, which is Monsanto. And so 343 is unique to the product. So you put those products together, you know this is Monsanto's Roundup Aquamaster herbicide. So again, that registration number is unique to that company that owns that product. Establishment numbers, the format is the company number, dash the state or the country where it was produced, dash an establishment number. I'm going to use the last bullet as the example, so the 100-MEX-1. So the 100 stands for Syngenta. Syngenta owns the company number 100. MEX stands for Mexico, so we know this was a Mexican Syngenta establishment that produced this product. And the -1 pinpoints that to a very specific location of an establishment owned by Syngenta in Mexico. So it'll pinpoint it to an actual physical address, physical location. So when you see a label, you should see a registration number and establishment number. So that tells you what product it should be and where it was produced. So we like to say the label is the law. And so the label is the written, printed, or graphic matter on or attached to the pesticide or device or any of its containers or wrappers. The literature accompanying the pesticide is also a part of the labeling. So you follow a label, you read the label, you use it for what it's registered for, and follow those directions. It will reduce misuse and harm to yourself, any other people, and the environment. So I just want to highlight a couple of boxes on this label here. Box 2, that's the brand name. Box 5 and 6, that's the ingredient statement that lists the active ingredients and the percentage. And 6 is the compromises of all the inert ingredients. Box 8, that's where you see the registration number, establishment number. Box 10 is the signal word. This one is caution, which is kind of a lower level. And it's followed by warning and danger. And box 12 is your first aid statements, in case you hopefully don't need those, but they're there. And box 14, your directions for use. So this again tells you what this product is approved for and how you should be, what the directions for use are, how much product, how you should be applying it and whatnot. And box 15 is your storage and disposal statements. And sometimes whenever you're doing searches on an e-commerce site, you should be looking for that registration number, but there are exemptions, very few exemptions, to where a product would not have to be registered with the EPA. One example is minimum risk pesticides or 25B products. EPA determined that certain minimum risk pesticides pose little to no risk to human health or the environment. And so EPA has exempted them from the requirement that they be registered under FIFRA. This provision is located in 40 CFR 152.25F. One example is citronella candles. So, we have these on our back patio to kind of get rid of some mosquitoes. But with the exemption, there are 6 conditions, and you must meet all 6 of those conditions. The first condition is that the product's active ingredients must be, so with the active ingredients and the inert ingredients, there are 2 lists of approved active ingredients and approved inert ingredients that you can use for these products. So all the active ingredients in the product that must be on that approved and active ingredient list. Condition 2, that's the same thing for your inerts. Condition 3, all those ingredients, both active and inert, must be listed on the label. The active ingredients must be listed by the name and percentage, and all the inert ingredients just have to be listed by their name. Condition 4, you cannot make any human health claims, so you can't say repels all mosquitoes that cause West Nile disease. For example, condition 5, the producer or the company for whom the product was produced, that must be displayed on the label. And condition 6, cannot make any false or misleading statements. So, example of a false and misleading statement is kills all insects. There's not going to be a 25B product that's going to kill all insects. So that would be considered false and misleading. Another false and misleading claim could be recommended by EPA. These are not registered by EPA, so therefore EPA is not making the recommendation to use these if they're meeting all 6 of these conditions. So those are just a couple of examples of what would be considered false and misleading. So switching up things, pesticide devices. This is any sort of instrument or contrivance which is intended for trapping, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pest. Example of these are water and air purifiers. You'll see a lot of air filters that'll say, get the bacteria and viruses out of the air. Another thing that's super popular right now, they're UV phone devices. They claim to kill viruses, COVID on your phone. So those can be considered pesticide devices. Requirements of devices are they do not have to be registered like pesticides, but they must be produced in a registered establishment. That establishment number should be placed on the label, and they cannot make any false or misleading claims. Certain devices subject to regulation are your UV devices. ozone generators, water and air filters that claim to inactivate, kill, and trap or suppress the growth of fungi, bacteria, viruses. Black light traps, fly traps, heat screen, fly ribbons, and then your sound repellents. And another one is the electromagnetic or electrical emissions. I don't know how many of y'all seen these handheld bug zappers and electric flea cones, but I have a couple examples next up. Or products that are claimed to control burrowing animals via product-caused subterranean explosions. Examples of devices not regulated by EPA are fly swatters. And the reason for that is the device depends on the effectiveness of the performance of the person using the device. So let's see, my aim's not very good. So when I'm using the fly swatter, I miss the fly. So my performance determines how good that works. So therefore, it's not considered a device. Another one is devices that entrap vertebrate animals, like mouse traps. Here's some examples of some violative devices. This flea zapper comb, it's an it's a violative device because it wasn't produced in the EPA establishment. So this is used to comb your pet, and as you comb it, it zaps fleas and kills them. So that's something that is not based on my performance of combing my animal and killing it. It's the zap is what's killing it, so therefore it's considered a device. And just on the left, you'll see the Charbo. Looks like a tennis racket, but again, it gives out an electric pulse that kills insects. So therefore, that zap, just like the flea comb, that's what's killing the pest, and therefore it's a pesticide device. And so you don't see an EPA establishment number on this label, so it was in violation. And so the company had some consequences with this shipment here. Device or pesticide, if the product has a substance or mixture of substance that's included in that device. So if it has some sort of, chemical that is actually doing the repelling or the killing within that device, it would no longer be considered a device. It is a pesticide and must meet those registration requirements for being a pesticide. All right, so let's go into some e-commerce sites. A lot of us, we'll buy things online through Amazon, Target, you name it, just out of convenience. And, it's just a lot easier. We can just make a click instead of going to a store sometimes. And so it's going to do a few searches on a couple of e-commerce sites here. So the first one is, okay, so I want some cleaning products. So I went to Target and I'm asking myself, is this a pesticide? Should I be looking for a registration number, an establishment number on this product? And so the question I'm asking is, are they making any sort of claims on this label? So looking at the label, they're just claiming to clean. They're not making any sort of bacteria or viruses claims like you would see on a Clorox wipes or spray. So cleaning is not a pesticidal claim. So therefore, this is not a pesticide, and when you would not see a pesticide EPA registration number on this product. So if you want just like something that's going to clean, it would not be regulated under FIFRA. It's not making that claim. Okay, so it's getting warmer outside, mosquitoes are coming out, and so some people might want something with more natural ingredients. They might not want to use DEET. And so this individual found this product right here, a mosquito spray. And so I'm asking myself, should I be seeing an EPA registration number, or is this a 25B product? So going through the conditions of Condition 1, are all the active ingredients on the approved active ingredient list for 25B products? And in the middle, you'll see all the active ingredients. And yes, all of those are on the approved active ingredient list for 25B products. Condition 2, are the inert ingredients? There's 2 of them, isopropyl, I can't pronounce this, sorry. Mesostate and vitamin E, those are approved inert ingredients for 25B products. So that meets that condition 2. Condition 3, are all the ingredients active and inert listed on the label? And does the active ingredient also include the percentages? Yeah, it looks like it. All the active ingredients are there. The percentage of it is there, and the 2 inert ingredients are there. So condition 3 seems to be met there as well. Is it making any human health claims? I'm not seeing any human health claims where it says kills mosquitoes that cause West Nile virus, whatnot. Condition 5, on the second picture, you'll just see it's distributed by that company right there. So it seems to be meeting condition 5. And condition 6, are they making any false and misleading statements? Not seeing any false and misleading statements. So this product appears to meet the 25B exemption, and I would not see an EPA registration number on that product. So the last example I'm going to show you is what you should be looking for with an EPA registered product. Again, it's getting warm outside, but ants are coming out, and I want a bait to put in my kitchen. And so I found Rain Max ant baits on Amazon here. And so looking at it, the label here, I see there's an EPA registration number and there's an EPA establishment number. Hey, we're looking good, pretty good so far. It's registered. There appears to be an establishment number there. I'm needing this to be used in my kitchen to kill ants. The approved use is to kill ants in kitchens and various other indoor areas. So this is looking good. There's the directions for use, storage, and disposal. On the front of the package, it has an ingredient statement on the bottom left right here. And so far, this is looking pretty good. So, if I wanted to look, there's a couple of sites you can look at to cross-reference pesticides you have found and to look at the EPA accepted labels. One is PPLS. These are both public sites, again, and NPIC. Both great resources to check and look at registered products labels that have been approved by EPA headquarters. So you can, here's PPLS, you can do various searches. One is the EPA registration number, or you can do it by brand name. Here's NPIC, again, you can do it by registration number, product name. You can also look and do searches by your pest that you're wanting to target and where you're wanting to apply it. So if I wanted to search up this product and see, hey, is this a legit registered product? And to see, hey, does this EPA accepted label match what I'm seeing on this product? These are 2 great resources to cross-reference with that. And then last thing, EPA put out a bulletin in February 2021 with DDBP, which is a highly toxic insecticide that's no longer registered in the United States in the liquid form. Again, it's extremely dangerous to human health. And but we're seeing a lot of it trying to come into the US and brought in illegally. And most of this time it's brought in via airplanes, people going to other countries and bringing it in, trying to bring it into the United States for illegal sale or distribution. A couple of these products specifically is Sniper and No Pest. They contain DDBP or dichlorvus. We particularly in Region 6 have worked with Customs and Border Protection to reject multiple of these type of shipments, especially Sniper, because of our close relationship with CBP. They've been able to target people's luggage at various airports in our region, trying to sneak this into their luggage from foreign countries. Most of this is coming from Nigeria. And one person in particular was trying to use this in the restaurant to kill roaches. So you see on this product, there is no EPA registration number. It's for professional use. So this is not something that just anybody should be using. This is highly toxic. And it's being used to, it's a fumigant insecticide. So it's making that insecticide claim. Therefore, it's a pesticide. It's unregistered. Should not be trying to buy it, bring it into the country, use it. You can cause a lot of harm to yourself or someone else in the process of doing that. Just wanted to share that as an example. But that's all I have. If anybody has any questions or for me.
Thank you, Kristen. Let me look here at the chat box and see. I don't see anything in the chat box. Kristen, do you want to check your chat box to make sure you didn't receive any comments or questions?
I will certainly try. I'm not the most tech savvy person. As you know already, Karen. I don't think I've seen any. Oh, someone did ask if I can share my presentation. Yeah, Karen, feel free to share the presentation.
Okay. I think there is a question, and I think it was, you might check your chat box. I think it was sent to both of us.
Okay. Are there any resources that have natural options for a repellent, or is it recommended to use a product for pets? So if you're wanting to go with that more natural or minimum risk pesticides, it must meet those 6 conditions. Otherwise, it needs to be a registered pesticide that you're using for that approved use. That's the important part. All these registered pesticides are approved for a specific use. So please make sure you're using it for that use that it's approved for. If you're, again, it must meet all those conditions of the minimum risk pesticide in order for it to be a compliant product. If it's a minimum risk pesticide, EPA is not approving those products nor reviewing them. That's another thing to take into consideration. Hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you, Kristen. Also, if you're calling in, you can email me or Kristen your questions. If you're calling in, you don't have the option to use the chat box, but you can email me and I'll forward them to Kristen. I don't see any other questions or comments in the chat box at this time. So thank you, Kristen, and we will move on.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Kenneth McPherson with EPA Region 6. Let me give you presenter privileges, Kenneth, and I will turn it over to you. You should be able to share now. We can see WebEx screen.
And can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation here. There we go. Right. So good morning. It's still morning for us here in Texas, and I believe it's morning still in the folks that are west of us here. But good morning, everyone, and I'm very happy to present to you today. Some of the stuff that was talked about by Kristen, I am going to also elaborate on some of the same information as it applies to disinfectants, sanitizers, and disinfectants, as well as some of these questions that you might have about minimum risk pesticides, which a lot of people want to talk about 25B. That's the paragraph in FIFRA that it comes into play, but they're really, the terminology is minimum risk pesticides, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well. So a few things that I wanted to discuss with you. I'm going to close this down real quick. Is that when you're developing a plan or a protocol to address, controlling COVID-19, here are the key recommendations that come from both the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Environmental Protection Agency. And first is to only use those disinfectants that are registered with the EPA. If you're using any other type of product that is not registered with the EPA, and when I say pesticide product, disinfectants are pesticides, if it's not registered with the EPA, it hasn't been evaluated for its effectiveness against the pest, in this instance, human pathogens that are being claimed for. Or if there's no claims, you're not sure if it's actually going to work per the way you're using the product. The other one is to control COVID-19, only use those disinfectants that are approved and are listed on List N, or they're specifically registered for control and effectiveness against SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. And you ask yourself, well, what's the difference? So all of those pesticides that appear on EPA's List N, EPA has looked at those pesticides under their current labeling and have found that there are human pathogens that are on those labels that, when used as directed for those pathogens, those pathogens are actually harder to control than SARS-CoV-2. So there would be the expectation that when you use it against those other pathogens in the manner for use for those pathogens, that you would actually get some type of effective control for SARS-CoV-2. Now, for a disinfectant that's specifically registered for SARS-CoV-2, that means that they've gone into a laboratory, they've taken the pesticide at different levels of its concentration, and have held it at different times for its wet use, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But wet use means that it's on there for a minute, it's on there for 10 minutes, those types of things. And they've looked at that, and they've actually found that it actually kills the SARS-CoV-2 in a scientific study. And so then they're allowed to actually say kills or controls is 99% effective for SARS-CoV-2. So that's the difference between those two. The one thing I want to point out here, though, is minimum risk pesticides, or 25Bs, cannot make any human pathogen control claims. So that's another one of those criteria. So that I may say I may have all of those active ingredients and those inert ingredients and actually pass all the other hurdles that are required for minimum risk pesticides. But one of the criteria that's in there is that, and we find this frequently, is that it's, for most purposes, it would be considered minimum risk pesticide, but they come out and they say controls viruses, controls MRSA, controls COVID-19. We have research that shows that it controls COVID-19. And those claims cannot be made. If they're going to make claims for control of COVID-19 or other human pathogens, they have to go through the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, Rodenticide Act, or FIFRA, a Section 3 registration process, to both show that it's effective, and then 2, by the directions for use, that there's no adverse human health risks or risk to the environment, just like anybody else that's making a disinfectant. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is that I want you to be aware of any pathogen controlling devices that claim that they control SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. Examples are the vast amount of UV devices that are on the market that claim that they're controlling COVID-19. Because what we're finding when we look at some of these products is that the amount of UV or the variety of UV is not enough to actually get the control based off of the directions that they're claiming to use. Or it's a device, but that device is actually mixing in with that device something that would make it a pesticide, which requires it to be registered. So anytime somebody has a device, we don't evaluate and register devices. We only require them to be produced in a registered establishment, like Kristen discussed. But if they're making these pathogen claims, they have to provide documentation to the customer for the claims that they're making, and that documentation has to support that. And they have to provide that if there's a complaint to the EPA, we will request that documentation, or even actually send a device to be studied to, if we have a complaint that the devices don't work as claimed, or something about the way they say that they're using the product. We'll actually test it ourselves, and if it's not effective, then we'll actually look at for a violation and FIFRA for false and misleading claims associated with that device. So the best thing that I can say is beware of these pathogen controlling devices and evaluate their use very carefully. Okay, that did not go down like I wanted to. All right, so when we're looking at these different pesticides, there's some important information that Kristen had discussed that I want to reiterate. And the first is that we want to make sure that the products are registered with the Environmental Protection Agency. And sometimes the EPA registration number is on the front, but most of the time that's going to be on the very back. And that can have either 2 sets of numbers or 3 sets of numbers. And basically, what are the 2 sets of numbers, as Kristen discussed? That's the company's name plus the pesticides. That's what those 2 numbers are. A third set of numbers are a supplemental distributor. So somebody else has a contract with the original registrant to actually produce that product with their own name and their own label on it. And so that's what the difference between the 2 sets of numbers and the 3 sets of numbers. The key issue here is that we want to look for those unique identification numbers for EPA registration on your product. So the advantages of doing a list in search. So one of the things is that when you want to look at your EPA registration number for researching in the list when you click on the website, and I'll have a link at the back of this that will also be shared with you by Karen. But the thing is that if you have a pesticide label that has 3 sets of numbers, you only put in the first 2 sets of numbers to determine whether the product that was originally registered appears on list in, because that's the only label that's actually going to be on file with the EPA, is the original label from the original registrant. So you'll type in the first 2 sets of numbers, or you can put the product's name. And what will happen is you may get an error on the product name because of spelling, capitalization, and those types of things. But if you use the EPA registration number, you're going to come up with the right information every time. So in this instance, what I'm doing is that I have a pesticide product in my hand that basically is 77-66. And so when I put that in there, it shows up as 77-66, and then it talks about the active ingredient, and that the product name is Lysol brand, all-purpose cleaner, and it's a Rickett Benckiser LLC is the original registrant of the product. But let's say that my product is 777-66-12, and it has a different company name underneath there. So how do I double check that my product, that 777-66-12, is actually a legitimate product? So the other option that I can do, sorry, this is taking a little time to switch here on my screen, is I can go to the pesticide product and label system, or PEOPLES, and this is one that was also discussed by Kristen. So when I type that in here under the EPA registration number, what happens is I get a big fat goose egg. In other words, nothing comes back. So that should send up a big red flag for me that this is probably not a properly registered product. What that's telling me is that that company has in some way ghosted somebody else's product, put their own labels out, and or it's not even similar to the original registration. They're just taking advantage of getting a product out there in the marketplace by using some numbers associated with something that appears on a list in. And this unfortunately does occur. It's not as frequent, but it does occur. So when you find that under the people system, the pesticide product label system, if that registration number does not pop up, go on to a different product. So another way that we can look at this product, and this is under the NPIC system, and that's the National Pesticide Information Center. The National Pesticide Information Center is actually based out of Oregon, and they have a collaborative grant that cooperative grant that they have with the Environmental Protection Agency to provide a whole bunch of different things through their website, which includes IPM for different pests, best management practices, ways for folks to search for pesticides by pest, and those types of things. And so if you go to their InPro site, the InPro site allows you to test. Now, the difference between the InPro site and People's is that the InPro site may have delays in the labels that they have based off of product registration, where People's will have the approved label and the company and the supplemental registrants fairly quickly. So there might be a delay, but there's more information that you can easily search for under the InPro site on NPIC. So when I put the original 777-66, you can see here at the bottom here that I get a whole list of different companies as well as supplemental distributors. So the very first one will be that first one for Lysol, and then after that, I'm going to have a lot of different supplemental registrations for this company. And when I go to search this site, in here you can see I put in a supplemental registration for this particular product. It tells me the active ingredients, and then I can actually click on the original label that was approved. And what happens is I'll get there's like 2 or 3 pages from the EPA that basically says, hey, we've approved your label. Here's your EPA registration number. There's a couple of things about your label we want to have changed, i.e. we want you to change this particular word to state this word, right? Very minor changes. If it's major changes, it won't get approved. Most of the time, it's just making it one statement change. And then it'll be followed by, I've seen some labels as long as 27 pages long, but it'll be approved with all the language that is required to be on the label, as well as additional language that can be on the label or can be in its labeling. And that's the marketing and advertising, websites, information you hear for sales pitches, those types of things. So it'll have that information, because what you'll see a lot of times is somebody will say, well, this is good for COVID, but it was never mentioned on this label. And you can actually check this label for all of that types of information. And if there's language that appears on the label or language that appears in the distribution and sales on websites and those types of things, then avoid the product if there's additional information, specifically the use against COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2. So if it doesn't appear on the in list and languages doesn't appear on these particular labels, then avoid the product. So again, those two effectiveness claims that we look hard at is, one is the 99.9% effective against SARS-CoV-2 or kills the virus that causes COVID-19. Those are effectiveness claims. And that means that the product registered for the control of SARS-CoV-2. These are not list-in claims. These are Section 3 registration claims. You can bounce these claims off of what you would see on the labels in Peoples or the labels that you would see in the Improve site managed by INPIC. Another thing that I want you to pay particular attention to is the signal words that are on some of these disinfectants. And yes, there are some major disinfectants that are used out there in schools and hospitals and offices that actually have the word danger associated with them. So it's very important that if you have a disinfectant program going on, either where you work or you have oversight or you're looking into a disinfectant program, that you look at the products and what the warning, the signal words are with these products and what that signal language means when you look at other things on there, such as risk to human health, the environmental information that's important, because we do have products out there that are disinfectants that when you read them and they're being used both in industry as in home use that have danger on them, they have words like they're highly toxic to fish, that you actually have to contact the sanitary waste manager for your locality before discharging that product down there, because sometimes it will require a permit because it'll kill all the natural biotic control agents that would be in the various systems that they have. Even if you're using things like triple ponds and those types of things, it can have a significant effect on those sanitary treatment facilities. And so the other thing is they may cause breathing hazards and those types of things, and have very specific information for PPE. So it's important to understand what these particular warnings pose. The other thing is understanding wet times, because a highly toxic product may have a product that requires like 1 minute contact time may have a higher level, or basically a category 2 or category 1 toxicity rating, or one that has a wet time, and that means that it stays wet to control it, may be a category 3 or 4. And so somebody says, well, I want something that controls in a minute. But again, our risks to human health and the environment may go up. Other statements and logos that I want you to keep a lookout for and consider is the child hazard warning statement, keep out of reach of children. Now, the key here is that EPA and the CDC do not recommend that anyone under the age of 18, that's 17 and below, use disinfectants or sanitizers, especially in schools and in any centers that focus on children. When we are in the teenage years, there's the potential for misuse, just because that's the nature of those folks, is to do stuff that ends up resulting in an unnecessary hazard that they just mentally did not perceive would happen. And when we start talking about younger children, they don't understand the hazards, and they'll put stuff in their mouths and those types of things. So it's important, and we reinforce the advice that you keep these products out of reach of children. The other statement that I'd like for you to look for, though, on some of your labels is the design for the environment logo. And there are disinfectants that are allowed to have the design for the environment logo. And I want to pull this up for you real quick. And here's some examples. So we have some antimicrobial products that have the design for the environment logo. What has shown up with these logos is that the products have been shown to be very low toxic. They have been shown to pose a minimum risk to the environment itself. And there's a long history of effectiveness. So they are effective against the pests that they have identified on their labels when used as directed. So an example is that you could look at the 777-111, which is this Lysol brand, kills viruses and bacteria, right? That's an alternative brand names, right? But it was originally Rosemary Tea. This is who has the registrant's name, it's lactic acid, and then you can click on the label through the PDF. I think the main thing that you want to do when you're utilizing this is that when you use the design for the environment logo, there's about 80 products on there. You can take a look at those products and then cross-reference that with the EPA's list in. The large majority of these products do appear on list in. So it's a low toxicity alternative. So trying to get this to move forward here for me. Apologize. Make sure I stay with my notes. I apologize. The main thing is that if you've gotten anything, and this is boring on purpose, because I want to make sure that I'm not endorsing a particular product over another. But the main thing is I want to make sure that you understand that anything you got out of this presentation is that you need to read the label, right? As a general rule, and I'm sure many of you that have participated in these before or have worked with the pesticide programs, is that the label is the law. So if you use a product inconsistent with its labeling, and an example would be in a danger product, which there are a few out there, and it says to use a coarse sprayer, yet you're using it with a mister or a fogging device, that's a use violation, right? So regardless of what anybody said, you got to follow the label. You also want to make sure that you're following the label for some other key pieces of information for control. So an example would be effectiveness claims, right? So you're looking at, it says it kills viruses and bacteria, but viruses doesn't always mean COVID-19. We want to look at the active ingredients. Here's the keep out of reach of children, or the KORC, and then also the signal word, which is caution. And then on the bottom backside, we can see where our EPA registration number would be, and we could also look for the establishment number, but also we can look at the precautions and the storage and disposal. So this is very important. So precautionary statements for hazards to humans and to domestic animals. And believe it or not, this label it's very long. So the one thing about this particular product is that when you read through it, it has all kinds of different information located throughout based off of the different types of pests you have and what the contact time or wet time would be. So this one here, the special instructions are listed in this one particular location. But then we also, down toward the bottom, we have special instructions where it talks about remain wet for 30 seconds. So it's very important that you read the entire label first and then find out where your use is going to be, what use you fit into, and then follow those directions per the label for that pest and that location and that specific situation. So again, on this label, we have some other information. It talks about deodorizing, sanitizing, and disinfecting. So sanitizing, basically when we're sanitizing something, we're actually kind of reducing the number of pathogens or microbes that are on a surface. And disinfecting is that we're killing 99.9% of those. So that's the distinct definition. So you'll notice that to sanitize, 10 seconds. To disinfect, it's talking about 3 minutes. For certain stuff, it's talking 10 minutes wet time before it dries. And then it has special instructions for toys and food contact surfaces, which require you to rinse them or wash them afterwards. Here's some additional statements for warning. Product that has a warning label, environmental hazard. So again, this is a warning, but this says this product is toxic to fish and aquatic invertebrates. So important information. So this is the last slide that I'm going to show you before we finish and take questions. This is the list of all the different sites that I talked about today. An additional site that I have on here for you is also the EPA's UV light compliance advisory. The reason why I put that on there is I want you to read through that so that you understand how we're trying to communicate to industry, and it also provides information to the general public about these particular products and the hurdles that industry has to go over to ensure that the products are effectiveness and that they're not overclaiming their effectiveness against SARS-CoV-2 and what their regulatory obligations are in that event. We also have some other types of products that are out there that that are producing hypochloric acid that make claims, but we find that they're making claims that they're producing 100 parts per million. with 1 minute, like you say an example, 1 minute contact times. But we already know in the EPA through testing that you have to have like 1,000 to 1,500 parts per million with 10 minutes contact time for hypochloric acid. So that right there, when we see those pieces, when we see those kinds of devices, we call that into question and actually take a look at those particular products for false and misleading claims. So I also wanted to go over some things that we're frequently seeing right now that that are coming across the board. Endangered label products with advertising of safe, natural, organic, safe for kids and pets. Same types of products with significant environmental impacts labeled safe, safe for the environment. And I gave you one of the examples where extremely dangerous to fish, and you can't even dispose of the containers or the rinsate into the sanitary sewer system. Also, products that are labeled for use with coarse sprayers or coarse spray, which is a droplet size of 325 microns, and they're being advertised for use with ULV and foggers and misters. Just so you understand, a ULV or foggers, they're talking 10 to 50 microns. So that's a breathing hazard. Effective statements not approved on the label or labeling. A lot of that, basically, they're saying they're 99% effective against COVID-19, and they haven't been evaluated for that. Our research, or what they'll do is they won't put COVID-19 on their label, and they won't tell you to use their product for coronavirus, but they'll say, they'll go out in public and publish, or they'll have a link on their webpage that shows research about our product, and it'll be research that shows that that's either their own lab or a third-party lab, like One Research, that says their product is effective against SARS-CoV-2. And basically, they're trying to get people to purchase and use that product without going through the registration process, which gives them an unfair advantage. Or they'll make a reference to say our product is being used in the European, is approved and used in the European Union for SARS-CoV-2, or in Singapore. So they're making references outside the United States with the intent of letting us know that it's good enough to use there. You should be able to use it here for the same purpose. And again, they're doing this without going through the Section 3 registration process. And then the minimum risk wannabes. We're running across this a lot, where folks are claiming that the products don't require registration as a minimum risk pesticide. They meet all the requirements of minimum risk pesticide, or they just say, hey, it's natural, it's organic, you know, those types of things. But they're making claims against pathogens. And again, you can't do that as a minimum risk pesticide. They have to go through Section 3 registration process to make those claims. And then, in addition to that minimum risk pesticide issue, is that the way the products are being used, we haven't had a chance, because they didn't go through the Section 3 registration process, to determine that if, based off of the directions for use, if there's any kind of increase in risk to human health and the environment. So with that, I am ready to turn it back over to you. Any questions?
Thank you, Kenneth. I don't see any in my chat box.
No, the only chat that I got earlier was from Jamie in the Sleda, giving me a Simplify. So, and Jamie, I sent you a remark back, because I was in the Army, so I always thought that the Marine Corps, you know, they served for the Navy, but I'm just messing with you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kenneth. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't see any questions or comments in the chat. If you're calling in, you can send me an email and I will be happy to forward that on to Kenneth. And I believe Kenneth sent me his PowerPoint and I can share that with you folks also. And I just wanted to let everybody know that we are recording all the sessions. So probably sometime next week, we should have them posted to our iTech web YouTube channel. And once we get those posted, I can send that link out again for folks if you want to go and watch a session or if you miss something. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Kenneth. We appreciate you guys presenting today. And don't forget to join us at 1 o'clock for environmental justice / environmental education session. And with that, we'll end this session and everyone have a good afternoon. And we'll see you back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, Ken and Kristen.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you,
Thank
Karen.
you.